It's the Mid-Year Freakout Tag! Ah! Ah! Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. I'm a composer, also a booktuber. You can find my music in The Wheel of Time Season 2, His Dark Materials Season 3, and the newly released The Hills of Tenchiko, the featured song, in The Wheel of Time Season 3, Episode 6. It is already approaching the 6-month mark of 2025. Where the heck did this year go? Pepper, what do you think? Where do you think it went, Pepper, huh? Pepper decided to join in on the video today, so I decided to have her here as my guest star. I think she was probably afraid when I was yelling earlier, but I hope you all have had a great last 6 months. It's been a roller coaster for me. A lot of books read, a lot of interesting things happened, and I figured this would be a great time to take stock and think a little bit about what I read. What was the biggest disappointments, the biggest highs, the highest highs, the lowest of lows in a reading experience that has been up and down, I think, this year. So let's jump in to the Mid-Year Freakout Tag. This Mid-Year Tag was popularized, I believe, by Murphy Napier years ago, and now it is kind of proliferated Booktube, right? You see a lot of Booktubers doing theirs. I figured I'll do my own spin on it. I got a chance to read 20 books in the last 6 months. Now, I was hoping to get to 30 for a 60 total this year, but hey, 20 is not too bad. I'm very excited that I got a chance to read, even with the Emmys campaign, even with all the work that was going on during this last 6 months. So let's jump into the questions. They are all listed below, but I'm going to read out the question and explain my answer as I always do with these tags. The first question is, best book you've read so far this year? Now, I had to think long and hard about this one because I've read quite a few good ones. I got a chance to read some of The Wars of Light and Shadow by Jenny Wirtz, and I'm absolutely loving those. I've been reading Malazan Book of the Fallen as part of the official channel read-along. But if I had to choose one book, it would have to go to George Orwell's 1984. This classic piece of dystopian fiction, I thought, had been so imbued into the pop culture that it had been kind of over-explained. Big Brother's always watching, the whole idea of government surveillance, it's kind of been long in the tooth, right? It's been out for like 80 years now. Boy, was I mistaken, because this book it hits as heavy as if I'd never heard of the concept before and never heard of this book or author. I tell you, if you've heard of it, if you've maybe seen the pop culture references and things like that, still take a look at this book because it is absolutely harrowing. It is probably the most disturbing book I've ever read, but it was absolutely prescient for the times. I mean, it even talks about one specific instance where there's so many subscriptions going around that people can't keep a track of what they're subscribed to. This was written in like the 40s, right? So pretty insane. And the totality of control as well is just really horrifying, but it's beautifully written, and it is it's a page turner, and it's not that big, but it really packs a punch conceptually. So that's the answer to question 1. Question 2 was best sequel you've read so far this year. Now, as I'd alluded to earlier, I've read quite a few good books this year, and I would have put this one as my favorite book of the last 6 months, but it was usurped by 1984. So which book is that? Well, I would have to give it to book 2 of Malazan Book of the Fallen by Steven Erikson. This is called Dead House Gates. Now, Dead House Gates really just captured my heart. The first book, Gardens of the Moon, we read back in January as a group, and I liked it, but I did feel like it was very disjointed in comparison to future entries. Dead House Gates takes a way darker turn, but I found the characters to be even more compelling, even though I loved and I still have favorites in Gardens of the Moon in terms of characterization, but I felt like the characters in general were way more compelling. And the themes that are explored of PTSD, of trying to overcome one's circumstances, of looking at the same battle from two different perspectives, one from a commander and one from a historian, and how those separate perspectives start to converge. I mean, really fascinating stuff. I've never seen military fantasy, let alone, fantasy in general, explored in this manner. But man, is it bleak. But man, is it good. So that would be the answer to the second question. That is my favorite sequel this year so far, Dead House Gates by Steven Erikson. All right, so question 3. New release you haven't read yet but want to. Now, I've had a chance to read some new releases this year. I got a chance to read Stephen King's new novel, Never Flinch. wasn't too keen on it, but that's a different story altogether. Let's talk about my most anticipated new release that I have not touched yet, and that is Discovery by J.A.J. Minton. Of course, you would know them from Talking Story, the wonderful channel. I love the way they talk about books, and I love how they keep things light while still going into the passionate responses of what makes fantasy so great, what makes sci-fi so great. And they have banded together and come up with a book that is supposed to be Eldritchian horror meets fantasy meets, it's a genre mashup, and it seems like it's going to be up my alley. So I'm very excited to check this out. By the way, I'm leaving all these book links in the description. If you feel like supporting these wonderful authors, feel free to check those out as well. Let's go to question 4. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. So I'm going to cheat on this one. Okay, and I apologize for that, but I hope you'll forgive me, and there's a good reason. So, in any other year, I would have said Ken Follett's Circle of Days, because Ken Follett is fast becoming a favorite author of mine, and Circle of Days, which is going to be released in the latter half of 2025, is about Stonehenge, one of my most intriguing subject matter. I think like writing a historical fiction epic on that. I've heard Bernard Cornwell has done one aptly named Stonehenge, but I'll be curious to see Ken Follett's take on it, because he always has, around the historical fiction, it's always centered around some very compelling characters. So I'm very excited to see what Circle of Days is going to have in store for us. But of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention a second entry that I would have tied with that, and that is Shadows Upon Time, Book 7 of the Sun Eater series by Christopher Rocchio. This one is like high up on my list. I have been reading all of them. Really, I read the first 3, and then I've been reading every single one after that upon release day. So I'm a Rocchio fan, and I'm just excited to see how Hadrian Marlowe's story concludes. I'm also a little sad because these books are has fast become one of my favorite series of all time. So I should do another top 10 series of all time list, I think, at some point. But that's neither here nor there. That is the second book on my list, and that is the answer to question 4. Question 5, biggest disappointment. So I hate talking about disappointments on this channel because I don't want to be disappointed, and I never want to disappoint you all in turn. But if I had to choose one, it was one I've soft DNF'd for now. And maybe it just wasn't the right time. But I was especially disappointed in this one because it's one of my favorite current fantasy authors, and that is Joe Abercrombie, and the book is The Devils. Now, Devils had a lot going for it. I think it had a very strong start. Brother Diaz's character was very interesting. I felt like every character actually had their own thing going on, and it was very cinematic. It reads almost like a screenplay. Here's where it fell short for me, though. I like humor in my books. I feel like Malazan Book of the Fallen, as serious as it is, it really injects humor at the right moments. Joe Abercrombie is a master of this in his First Law universe, so I love when there's that juxtaposition of the light and the dark. However, I feel like in this book, it almost felt like watching a Monty Python skit, which is cool, but I didn't sign up for that, with Joe Abercrombie. Like, we're pages and pages of banter that is really more about the joke than moving things forward or like diving more into the characters. I really feel like the jokes didn't always land it for me, and I feel like the jokes actually took away from the story, and I found I wasn't as invested with the characters, you guys, and I feel like it's a very hard balance to strike, but I feel like Joe Abercrombie has done that previously. Maybe it will translate to the bigger screen even better, because I know they are adapting it, and James Cameron, I think, is like producing it or something with Lightstorm Entertainment, so that is very exciting for Joe Abercrombie fans alike. But yeah, this one didn't land for me, and I was sad because I wanted to like it so much. But oh well, maybe I'll revisit it. Maybe I'll change my tune. Who knows, right? Let me know if you disagree with me, by the way, in the comments. I'd love to know your thoughts on The Devils. Biggest surprise. This is question number 6. Biggest surprise. I would have to give it to my most recent read, and that is Book 1 of Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn by Tad Williams, The Dragonbone Chair. Now, I've been doing this as a read-along on Booked and Busy's channel. Wonderful channel. Definitely check it out. But an star-studded cast of booktubers. Elliot Brooks, Philip Chase, Gavin Reeds, the list goes on, right? And I've really enjoyed the read-along component of it, but I was very surprised because this is the book that has influenced Realm of the Elderlings, Song of Ice and Fire, so many of the greats. And when there's an influence book, I find sometimes I'm retreading old territory, and I find it kind of harder to get invested in it because I have the gift of hindsight. or the curse of hindsight in this case, right? It's like I've read this other stuff and I don't want to retread old territory. But what I feel like with Memory of Sorrow and Thorn is it's still, even though it has influenced these things, it feels very much its own thing. I think it's just, I love Tad Williams' writing. It's so charming. I mean, I don't care what he writes about personally. I've read one of his other land books, loved it, loving this journey. And it was surprising for me because I expected more tropes. And, I even enjoyed the slower pacing. Like I enjoyed the rougher aspects of the book that other people wouldn't like as much, the slightly unlikable teenage protagonists. But yeah, no, I was very surprised at how much I enjoyed this one. Definitely check it out if you haven't, because I highly recommend it. Definitely worth your time, even if you are quite well versed in fantasy. Question 7, favorite new author, debut or new to you? So I have to give this unequivocally to one of my new favorite fantasy authors, and that is Jenny Wirtz. Jenny Wirtz is, of course, the author of the Wars of Light and Shadow 11-book magnum opus, which we have been reading as a channel. We are on book 4, Fugitive Prince, now as of this taping. And I got to say, the way she words things, the way she weaves words in almost like a tapestry, you're deliberately focused, you're deliberately forced to take a pause and really chew on the words a little bit rather than trying to get through to the end, which is kind of refreshing. And I got to say, it was a learning curve. But that learning curve is, when you get to the other side of it, it is a well-earned feeling because the characterizations, the subtlety of the movements are just expertly crafted. It's like looking at, a painting in the Louvre or something, right? And you could stare at it for hours. And the closer you look at it, the more you look at it, the more you get out of it each time. I feel like that's what Jenny Wirtz's books are like. And I'm so glad I've discovered her as an author because not only is she an incredible author, but she's a fantastic human being. We chat all the time on Messenger. She is constantly engaged with the community. Just a wonderful person, a beacon of light in this here Booktube space. So Jenny Wirtz definitely fits the bill for favorite new author there. Question number 7. Question number 8, newest fictional crush. So I kind of realized as I was making this list, gosh, I haven't read too many female characters, I guess, in these books. Like I think about Deadhouse Gates, there were a few, but it wasn't like a focus on that, right? 1984, of course, not really. So I guess, and Dragonbone Chair, it was not quite the same, but I guess if I had to choose one, I don't even really know what I would say. I guess I could say like Althea Vestrit from Ship of Magic, even though she's not really a crush, but she's somebody I was rooting for, She just seems like a badass, and I feel like even though she is rough around the edges, she's doing things with a passionate heart, and I feel like that resonates with me a lot. So kind of a cheat there. I know it's not really fitting the bill, but it's the closest I could come. Let's talk about question number 9, newest favorite character. I would have to give this to unequivocally Arathon from Wars of Light and Shadow. He is the master of shadow. He is one of the half brothers with Lysair, who have this enmity and fraught relationship through the whole series. Fraught relationship throughout the series. And I gotta say, Arathon's love of music, first of all, automatic win for me. And I just like the way he is kind of the unlikely hero. He would rather be going into his music, and he's kind of forced into a role that is really something that he feels reluctant about. I feel like he has way more compassion than Lysair, at least at this moment, even though he has his flaws as well. I am Team Arathon for sure. No question about it. So that would be my favorite new character. Question number 9. Question number 10, book that made you cry. So I don't often cry when I read. I will get maybe choked up, or I will feel very emotional without the physicality of crying maybe. But the book that really got to me this year was Jack Ketchum's The Girl Next Door. Now, this was a spontaneous read. I'd heard it was disturbing. It is based on a true story of a girl and her sister who were living with, I guess, like a neighbor. And basically the neighbor and the kids and the whole town gangs up on them and tortures them, It's a really sad situation, and it actually happened in the 60s. Yeah, it was just a heavy read. I mean, it's one of those, Jack Ketchum never really goes off page, or like off stage, the brutality happens on the page, and you're kind of forced to see the slow slide into just total depravity. Yeah, it's not one I would recommend for the faint of heart, but it is fantastically written, you know, so you couldn't stop turning the pages even though you wanted to. So I would say that would be the book that made me cry, or the book that made me feel the most emotional, because, you know, I hate seeing like kids get hurt, and then of course there's the real life component of it, so it's just a tough one. On that light note, I guess, question 11, book that made you happy. I would have to go back to The Dragonbone Chair, book 1 of Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn by Tad Williams. Again, it's just so charming. Even Simon's absent-mindedness, his inability to make the right decision at every turn, you know, his unlikely hero status and everything. But that whole first 150 pages where he's like exploring the castle and the Green Angel Tower, the Hayholt and everything, and before stuff starts to go down, it's just so charming. I don't know, it just made me happy because I guess it made me nostalgic for a world I've never read about, because it reminds me of so many things. It kind of feels like home, you know? You just imagine playing outside and smelling the fresh bread baking on in the windowsill or something like that. I don't know, it just feels like that kind of vibe to it. Even juxtapositioned against the darkness. So gotta say, Dragonbone Chair, definitely a book that made me happy. So we're getting to the last 2 questions. I would love to know your responses if you wouldn't mind sharing them, because I love this to be the start of a dialogue, never the end of one. I like hearing what you all have to say. It's fun. So please feel free to chat with me down there. Also, there's a Discord channel. The link is down below. So you can, you know, sign up for that for free. We have about 70 members now, and all book addicts like myself. And if you want to just chat in a welcome environment, you're always welcome. But now back to the last 2 questions. So question 12, most beautiful book you have acquired this year. Well, that goes without saying, my friends, because I've gotten a chance to go to some used book sales, find some really cool books. But if I had to give it to one, it would have to be one that was gifted, actually. So it has special meaning, first of all. Second of all, it is fast becoming a favorite fantasy series, and that is the broken binding editions of Malazan, Book of the Fallen. Now, those of you who know me and know this channel know we've been going through this series. We're at book 3, Memories of Ice, and Broken Binding has released a beautiful editions of the first 3 with custom artwork, you know, end papers and sprayed edges and the whole 9 yards, you know. And my in-laws got it for me as a gift. So I was very grateful. I was very surprised. And then I received the books and I opened them up. And I mean, take a look at this stuff. Like, you could see the love and care that goes into each aspect of this book. You know, even the inside of the book, you know, like the naked hardcover just looks fantastic. So highly recommend you check it out if you haven't already. I know they're going to be releasing some more the rest of the series in addition, so I'm excited to see those, and of course collect them, because as a collector and reader, gotta have them. And the final question 13, is what books do you need to read before the end of the year? There are so many, you guys. Okay, so I definitely want to finish Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn, that series. I want to read a few more books of Malazan. I want to finish the Expanse series by James S.A. Corey. I want to read some more Ken Follett, which I'm going to be doing with his newest release, maybe even fit in, book 1 of his Kingsbridge series with the Pillars of the Earth. I want to, of course, finish Sun Eater series. This is going to be a lot of finishing series, I hope, this year. But there's so many. I want to read more of the Asian Saga by James Clavell. But, I could probably make a whole video on that. So I would rather leave it to you in the comments and let me know what other books you want to be reading this year. What do you have left on the docket? Like, I would love to know what's on your a wider TBR. Please leave it in the comments. Please like and subscribe if you like this video. I'm trying to, put more stuff out there. I want to just keep adding value to the channel and inviting more discussion of our favorite hobby, right? Reading. So with that, I'm Nikhil with Shelf-Esteem. Be good to yourselves. Be good to each other. And I will see you, as always, on the next video. Take care.